It's going to be an exciting spring for the entire family, right here on PBN. We've got several new dramas, comedies, and reality programming. Here's just an example of our new spring lineup. An Andorian couple return home from a much-needed vacation to find an infant left on their doorstep. They decide to raise their new baby son, but here's the wrinkle. The baby's human, but the madcap hijinks ensue.
Hi, Stevie. How's my big boy? Did you get all your homework done?
Yes, Mom. I even took out the trash.
Very nice. You are certainly in a good mood today. I thought your first day would be a little harder on you. I must say, I'm pleasantly surprised.
And how is my wonderful family today?
Oh, just great, dear. Stevie was just telling me that he had a good day today.
Gee, that's terrific, son. None of the other kids bothered you? You know, about being different, I mean?
Some kids were whispering about me, but I ended up making a friend. I think he invited me to a party after school tomorrow.
You think? What does that mean?
Well, he asked me to meet him after school for a Ushan.
What?
I hated losing my new friend, but I had to respect tradition.
I'm sure his parents will understand. I just hope you learned your lesson today, Stevie.
I sure did, Mom and Dad. I learned never to get caught in a duel to the death. But if I do, always lunge for the subterminous ventral artery just behind the left antenna.
You'll be an Andorian yet, sweetie.
I love you, Mom and Dad.
We love you, Pigskin.
Yes, it's Pardon My Pigskin, Sundays, this spring.
Foundry changes, spotlights, interviews, and more tonight in the news.
The newscast is also brought to you by Mr. Breen. Flash freezes 99.9% of household bacteria in a microsecond.
Tonight's news is brought to you by Ryzen Motors. Ryzen Motors takes you to the sky and lets you float among the clouds. Tonight's news is brought to you by Solicitor Bran. For compensation, he's your man. Tonight's news is sponsored by Rice-A-Roni. Yes, Rice-A-Roni, the Starfleet Academy treat, independently shown to help cadets on shore leave get their Horgon. Rice-A-Roni, a subsidiary of Chelaski Industries, LLC, this product has not been verified to help cadets get their Horgon. And so I told the quartermaster point blank, would it be so hard to replicate a good foam mattress for once? And would you believe that he actually told me that we're on? And good evening, gentle beings. It's a quiet news cycle in Star Trek Online lately. Foundry Spotlight gets released. Dan Stahl talks Voyager, and more in the news.
Welcome to Kirk's Fat Assets. In this edition, I'll be counting down the top 10 props on Bajor that I'd love to see in the Foundry. Without further ado, let's do it.
Number 10.
This banner. I like it because it moves and it seems fairly generic. There are lots of times when I'm building an alien city and I really wish I had props like this one. It's pretty nice.
Number 9.
This light. We have some lampposts somewhat similar to this, but they're far too industrial looking for a place like Ryza or inside of a cave. Having these lights would help out many authors who could use them in lots of creative ways. Number 8. This tree. Yes, I know we have lots of trees in the Foundry, but none of them look this nice and realistic. Please add.
Number 7.
The orb. There's a starburst effect that works really well with the orb on the DS9 map. The problem is, well, the orb's stuck on the DS9 map, so anytime a Foundry author needs to use the orb, then he or she has to use the DS9 map. For the love of the profits, add in the orb.
Number 6.
The vendor booth. Having more props like this would help us add lots of nice details to custom cities. It would also give us a more realistic way to give players a fetch quest for certain items. Please add.
Number 5.
This bench. We have almost nothing that resembles outdoor seating in the Foundry, and we could do a lot of useful things with this bench. It's also so generic that it would fit with a lot of different settings.
Number 4.
The water. If we had a 40 by 40 flat and transparent surface area of water, we'd use it for all kinds of things, from adding water puddles to hilly maps to making a hot tub. This kind of prop is a must-have.
Number 3.
This bridge. I don't know if it's even textured on the top, but I really want it or something like it. The closest thing to it is the rope bridge. I want to build better sky cities, and this bridge would go a long way in helping me to do that.
Number 2.
These shelves with all their goodies. And let me explain. There are many times when I want the player to fetch something like a gun, a med kit, a pad, or a special item. The problem is we have none of those things in the Foundry, so just having a set of shelves that contain those items would really help.
Number 1.
And the number 1 item on Bajor is the open holodeck. Yes, we already have a TNG-style holodeck box that the player can start inside of and then initiate a program. But we really need one that has an open door so the player can enter and exit it without some kind of crazy trigger workaround that traps them inside of a box. Also, the holodeck prop that we have is TNG. It's out of date for 2409. So those are my top 10 picks for Bajor. May the prophets guide the Foundry out of darkness and into the light.
Block. Strike. Oh, by the sword of Kalis. Wake. Wake, little warrior. You should have taken that batak in 4 moves. Ah! What? Klingons don't fly. Stop it right now. Wait a minute. Did you have a meal this morning before the contest?
No, Father.
No? Foolish child. That is why you failed. You must eat a good meal to keep your strength up and be alert. Come, I have just the thing. Kellogg's Rock Bites, the live cereal that contains all the nutrients a growing Klingon warrior needs. And they taste great too. Why, we've had rocked bites from the house of Kellogg around our table for generations. Why, 1 bowl of this, and you'll be able to ground your friend out there into dust. You will have your vengeance, my little warrior. And remember the proverb, revenge is a dish best served cold, and Rock Bites is a cold cereal. It is a meal fit for Kalis himself, and it's part of an honorable breakfast. Now go out there and gut your enemy. Ha 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 ha.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime UGC Episode 15's Mini Mission Review. It's time to go through one from our guest author's catalog of work.
This time around we have The Great Escape by Zorbane. It's a Fed mission built on a solid premise, employing sound fundamentals. Let's begin our critique with story.
You are sent to meet a secret contact near Deep Space Case 7. What follows is a rousing adventure to sabotage a Klingon facility and escape intact. We enjoyed the story and many of its characters. It was a very straightforward combat mission without a ton of reading, and the writing was polished. Perhaps the Klingon character could have been more fleshed out because he didn't seem very honorable to us, but otherwise it was a good story.
Zorbane did a nice job of executing his plot through concise dialogue that did not weigh down the action. He also delivers a surprise plot twist that makes the experience that much more enjoyable. Everything was logically done, and the plot never strayed from its straightforward goal of plausible story mixed with action. We gave story 4 stars. On to map design.
Some of the maps were ambitious, especially the interior sets where there were lots of additional details added to the scene. Both the captain and myself would have enjoyed more details in the space map, but Zorbane's minimalist style might appeal to other players who are sick of asteroids everywhere in space.
I myself love a good asteroid field. But yes, Zorbane might jump back into the editor and possibly enhance his space maps with a few colorful backdrops. That would make for an interesting atmosphere without adding obstacles for the player. The ground maps, on the other hand, were very well done and only added to the enjoyment of several well laid out battle sequences. Map design garnered 3.5 out of 5 stars. Now tech.
Tech was nicely done. Instructions were clear and the maps were easy to navigate. I also appreciated the times when my bridge officers did things for me instead of telling me to run between 4 or 5 consoles to do everything myself. Not a ton of tricks, bells, and whistles, but the mechanics were well put together.
We enjoyed a sequence of laying down explosive charges, knowing that Zorbane had to cleverly hide the majority of the asset to be able to use the prop effectively. It just goes to show that a good Foundry author can work his or her way around the lack of even the most basic usable assets. We all hope this gaping hole in STO's Foundry inventory will be corrected post-Neverwinter Foundry release. That is my solemn prayer to the UGC gods. Meanwhile, back at this review, Tech gets a solid 4 stars. Lastly, difficulty.
This combat mission was a lot of fun, and it culminates in an epic space battle that is just the right length and balance. I was really impressed with this category. Even though I died more than a few times, it was fun and challenging. When a mission is mostly combat with few puzzles, branching dialogues, and fetch quests, it's very nice when it's balanced well.
Agreed. I'd also like to point out that the helper ships and Zorbane's large space battle sequences do not do all the work for you, like you find in a lot of missions. You genuinely feel your participation is essential. In this category, which is always the hardest to judge, Zorbane gets 5 stars.
That's our review for The Great Escape by Zorbane. Go forth, all you Foundry authors, and continue to provide content.
Next time on Primetime UGC, we double it up with one mission from 2 perspectives when we are joined by guest author XR377. Doctor, I would speak with you regarding some discomfort I'm having.
Sure, Sulek. What seems to be the trouble?
In private, if you don't mind, Doctor.
Don't worry about Nurse Borden, son. She's busy with her duties. That patient on the bed there went into cardiac arrest a few minutes ago. Now what's troubling you? Come on, out with it. I'm a doctor. There's nothing I haven't heard.
Well, I've been on this mission out in deep space for 6 years now. It was about a year before I got the assignment
Say no more, son. I've got just the thing. Medical science has advanced to the point where we've almost licked the common cold. Blood fever? No problem. Not anymore. Now there's Volcaden, Ponfar Reliever. It magically erases all symptoms associated with the Vulcan mating ritual.
I have tried medications before, Doctor,
But you've never tried Volcaden. Just take 2 of these and you'll be right as rain.
You are right, Doctor. I feel 98.35% better already.
Ask your doctor about Vulcaden. There's no need to fear Ponfar.
Side effects may include weight gain, weight loss, hair loss, ear pain, stomach upset, diarrhea, incontinence, flatulism, irritation of the inner eyelid, round ears, and priapism, a mind meld lasting more than 4 hours. If you experience any of these, call your doctor immediately. patients with an allergy to plomeek root should not take Vulcanin.
All this training, battle drills, and killing works up quite a thirst, and even though we are Jem'Hadar, we occasionally get fatigued, especially when we become honored elders like me. That's why I love Victory Energy Drink. Victory gives you that 26-hour boost that Jem'Hadar over 20 sometimes require. First, and Victory contains half the sugars of other energy drinks. First, so it's much less filling and won't slow you down. First. What is it, second? Victory is also the only energy drink that contains the isogenic enzyme that every Jem'Hadar needs. That's right. It's brewed from the finest trinucleic fungi this side of the Cabrel system. It keeps me alert so I can keep killing and maiming all day long without tiring. And it's got half the calories of other brands. I am First Ren, and I am tired. And at our age, we are all tired. We drink to reclaim our energy. This we do gladly, because we are Jem'Hadar. And remember, victory is light. Victory is light.
This is a Federation News Network broadcast. Every day, the brave men and women of Starfleet dedicate their lives to the protection of Federation citizens. But we still need more. Do your part for the war effort. Sign up at your local Starfleet or Federation Outreach Center and make a difference to the galaxy. Our shipyards are working at peak efficiency, rolling out record numbers of state-of-the-art vessels, outfitted for any eventuality, and staffed by the best and brightest the Federation has to offer to reinforce the fleets on the edge of Federation space. But we need more resources to fuel our shipyards and quartermasters, which is why President Okeg and the Federation Council have introduced Operation Fast Track, significantly streamlining the membership process for strategically valuable worlds. More species are joining every day. Our tough men and women in uniform have beaten back the once mighty Klingon Empire to retake key systems that once had been ours. We're not alone in our fight. We have new allies in the Romulan Republic who are joining in our defense against those who would seek to oppress and conquer. Despite the losses we have suffered, Starfleet Command, the Federation Council, and President Okeg are more confident than ever that we will prevail. But not without your help. The Federation needs you.
Hello, Stoke community, and welcome to Foundry Essentials. This next set of tutorials that should run with each episode of PrimetimeUGC will be a back-to-basics special. We're going to go back to the very basics of the Foundry and do a walkthrough. And hopefully this walkthrough will benefit new Foundry authors, people who are struggling to learn the toolset, and people who may be frustrated with the existing tutorials because they're now outdated. So what I'm going to do in this short tutorial is I'm just going to give a very basic introduction to the Foundry, and the next set of tutorials we're going to start building our mission together, and by the end of it we'll both have missions constructed, and you should have a pretty good understanding of how the Foundry works. Okay, so this is where you start. This is the first screen, and you'll want to click Create Content. And before you get to this point, if you're a brand new STO player, you should have at least played the tutorial and earned 10,000 dilithium. You're going to need the dilithium to buy project slots if you're a free-to-play player. So you'll see this screen. If it's your first time logging in, you may not, or you may have some character slots, or you may need to buy Foundry project slots. As far as I know, if nothing has changed, silver players, which are the free-to-play players, get 0 Foundry slots, so they have to buy Foundry slots with 10,000 dilithium. Gold members who do subscribe to the game get 8 slots. So once you have your slots, and once you have your character, you'll log on. And I should say that when you think about this character, don't even worry about it. I mean, once we entered that screen, we went right to the Foundry, so nothing that we do with this character is going to affect the normal game. It's really just a throwaway character that we create in order to test our maps. It doesn't take away from your other character slots in the main game. It's simply just a tune that you need to create in order to test your Foundry missions. And I should also say that if you're building a Federation mission, you need to have a Federation tune. And if you're building a Klingon mission, you need to have a Klingon tune, because you can't use a Fed to test a Klingon mission and vice versa. So if you've decided to build a Federation mission, create a Federation tune and then create a new project. And when you create a new project, you can specify that is Starfleet and give the project a name. Now you can change the name at any time, so you can give it just some kind of random name. I've already created the project that I want to use, and so I'll go ahead and load that now. Okay, so here we are. This is the opening screen of the Foundry. Up here it tells you your mission is not published. There's your mission name. Here's a project ID, which is a unique designation of your mission. You can specify the language. You can also change the allegiance of your mission. This description box is the first thing that a STO player will see when they're browsing UGC missions. So we'll deal with that later when we really finish our mission and we're ready to sell it to the public. We'll deal with this screen. This screen is just simply private author notes, so don't worry about it or put stuff in there to remind yourself later. Players will never see whatever you put in this box. On this side of the Foundry, this is where all the action happens. Now you'll notice immediately when you launch the Foundry, it has all these errors. Not necessarily errors, but gentle reminders that, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And it's basically telling you what you need to do before you publish your mission. And that is, this information must be filled in, which refers to the description. This box needs to be filled in. You need to specify a costume, etc., etc. We'll deal with all that later. Don't worry right now about the task that it tells you to complete. We can take care of all of that later. Now, here you'll notice we have various tabs. This is the tab that you originally started on. Here is what we call the storyboard. This is where all your objectives are laid out. And you'll notice the objectives here on the right. The objectives really start right here with interact with object. You can interact with an object on a map, you can kill enemies on a map, you can have a dialogue, or interact with a pop-up dialogue. We'll deal with the differences of that later. Or you can reach a marker, and a marker is a circle, basically a radius that a player has to reach in order to advance the story. Now with the Season 6 updates, Cryptic has done a lot where you can work mainly in the Story tab. I wouldn't really recommend it. It's kind of confusing and it's counterproductive in some ways to really start here. Instead, you'll probably want to start with the Maps tab. You'll want to create your maps, you'll want to put all the stuff on your maps and create the characters for your maps, put all the stuff in place before you really get going with, hey, go talk to this person, or hey, go talk to that person. So that's the difference between the Story tab and the Map tab. The Story tab consists of a bunch of tasks, and that just tells the Foundry, hey, player needs to go do this, followed by go do that. The Map tab is where you'll spend most of your time, because you'll spend most of your time just building sets or putting down objects or changing triggers and all that stuff. And you'll also notice there are different types of maps that you can create. So if we create a map, we could create a space map. And this option we can make a custom map. So you can put the planet in yourself, you can put the backdrop, which is kind of like the sky of space. You can put that in, etc. Or you have these pre-made maps, which are cryptic maps. And those load for you with all the details in them, and you can use them as you see fit. There are also outdoor maps. You don't have the ability to customize these, but you have quite a few of the alien ones, and the Borg and Crystal Cities, and all these different maps that you can use for your mission. Or you have indoor maps, which are interiors. We'll get into that more later when we actually start to build our mission. But that is the Map tab. It's where you can put spawn points, you can put respawn points, lay down your planets, put in your details, etc. And we'll deal with quite a bit of that as we go. The other tab to think about here is the Dialogue tab. Now, don't worry too much about this for now, because the game will take you to it when you need to do something with it. So don't worry about creating dialogues here and messing with this very much, because the Foundry will take you to it. The last part that we're dealing with is costumes. You don't have to create costumes for every NPC, which means the characters or the enemies in your map. You don't have to create costumes because there's lots of default cryptic costumes that you can use. And the costume tab has a pretty restrictive limitation on how many costumes you can create. But this is where you need to go if you do have a unique character that you want to create in your mission. And creating that character is very, very similar to creating your own toon in the regular game, so you shouldn't have much problems dealing with that. Otherwise, that is really my bare bones basic introduction to the Foundry. Next episode of Foundry Essentials, we'll start to build our map together, and then I'll teach you more that you need to know about item placement and all the different explanations for X, Y, and Z values. But for now, just get in here and mess around with the different tabs, and if you're feeling so bold, try to create something. Try to create a map. Or put Borg battleships in the map and just play test the map to see what they look like. Okay, this has been Foundry Essentials, Part 1 of an Introduction to the Foundry. Stay tuned for Part 2 next time, and we'll really get into the details. Okay, see ya!
Don't forget to tune in to the Federation broadcast system on Thursday for the immortal Ken Burns as he presents his newest documentary on the Dominion War. The year was 2373. Enterprise E had chased the Borg back through time to protect First Contact. The Kazon had taken control of USS Voyager in the Delta Quadrant. But here, in the Alpha Quadrant, closer to home, brave Starfleet personnel were fighting off the Dominion, whose forces were bolstered by the Cardassians, who had joined them in their quest to destroy the Federation. Battle after bloody battle ensued in places like Rondak and Taurus, where we had lost so many brave souls. Dear Rondella, I woke this morning to the surprising news that I had been promoted to First Officer of the Montana. You know how long I've been waiting for that promotion. If I knew it would have taken the brutal death of Commander Vandrell at the hands of the Jem'Hadar, I'd have been happy being a lieutenant forever. I will honor him by being the best XO I can be, and to help to reduce these type of promotions. Too many good officers are being lost in this war, but we must prevail, lest we all become slaves to a puddle of shapeshifters. I count the minutes till we are together again. All my love, Albert.
Welcome to episode 22 of PrimetimeUGC. We've got a jam-packed show this time. Not only do we have a new Foundry Essentials, but an interview with none other than JJ... What? What's going on?
I don't know. It's like our broadcast is being jammed from somewhere.
Can you boost the gain on it?
I'm trying, but there's a strong transmission bringing down our amplifier.
Boost it!
I can't!
Where's the override? The override! We've done it. We've broken through.
That little device is worth everyone we had to kill for it.
Now we have control of their airwaves. There's no stopping the Empire from spreading its word into this universe as well.
Get ready, all you miscreants out there. The Terran Empire has arrived.
Why don't we start off, for those listeners who don't quite know who you are, because I'm sure there'll be some people. Do you want to sort of tell us what you do on Star Trek Online from day to day, or just in general?
Well, as you said, I'm the lead designer on Star Trek Online, and that means that the design department reports to me, and I report to the executive producer, me and the other leads, the software lead and the art lead. So I'd like to think of myself as chief tactical officer, and while the engineering lead is like chief engineer, and the art lead is chief science officer, and we all report to the captain. I'm in charge of taking the company and the executive producer's directions, strategic directions, and turning them into tactical decisions on exactly what we're going to do, what ships we're going to make, what missions we're going to make, based on the resources that production and the executive producer gives us. And not to say at all that those decisions are entirely up to me. All the leads and everybody is still a very collaborative process. Executive producer has creative ideas, and the other leads have creative ideas, and all the individual designers have creative ideas. So my job is to basically train and mentor and steer what the designers are doing. So we have a plan, say we're going to make a ship or we're going to make a mission, and it's up to me to set a framework as far as we want to have an escort ship, and it's going to be based on the Alachi. Or we're going to do a mission that is based on, that's going to take this is the overarching story arc for this season, and we need 10 missions, and this mission is going to be this segment. Now, the designers will go and flesh out the details, and then they'll present that to me and the other leads, and then we'll steer that and kind of offer guidance and direction, just like maybe a director might do. Mm-hmm. So I no longer myself implement much data. I used to. I made most of the early ships in the game and a lot of the early designs and critters when the game was much smaller, the team was much smaller, but individually actually contribute very little implementation of the data at this point.
You said that you're basically like the tactical officer, essentially, and that you have some influence over design decisions and that sort of thing. So who is in charge of the Foundry then, I suppose? We'll jump straight in there. Or who's leading sort of the day-to-day efforts on the Foundry? Because we've seen tweets from you, and I think it was back in October, if I'm right, saying that you're having meetings with the Neverwinter team and the other members of the Foundry team. So I was wondering if you could sort of fill us in more on how that all works and who's in control of that day-to-day.
Sure. Well, the people in charge of the Foundry, that it's kind of flipped back and forth a little bit. At one point, there was just a separate Foundry team, part of the core team of Cryptic Studios. So Cryptic Studios has a Neverwinter team, a Star Trek Online team, and a Champions Online team, and then teams that work on other projects, or other unannounced R&D projects. But there's also a core team, mostly engineers of core, and they, for instance, those resources and tools and features that are used by all the projects, like the graphics engine or the tools, designer tools. So there's a core team, networking, and that sort of stuff. And part of that team was the Foundry team for a while. And while the Foundry guys set up the Foundry for Star Trek Online, and then moved over to Neverwinter. And it was because Neverwinter was the inspiration for building the Foundry, because when we got the Neverwinter license, we knew one of the big things about the Neverwinter franchise is building your own dungeons. So it says, well, we got to build something like that. And so we built it first for Star Trek Online, and then what we learned from that we applied to Neverwinter. So that was a core team. Eventually, that team actually just got folded into Neverwinter, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know all the individual contributors. I'm sure people moved around a little bit. So once in a while, that team is available to help us to take some of their more advanced features that they've done on Neverwinter and put them into Star Trek Online. Now, that doesn't stop our own engineers from actually going ahead and making new features or copying features from Neverwinter. It's not as simple as copy and paste, but by copying, I mean emulating features from Neverwinter. So our engineers can actually do that themselves, but it's not their specialty. So, it's not they're not as familiar with the code. So there's always some ramp up time if they're going to take on a task. Smaller tasks are easier. Bigger tasks are best left for the people who have more experience with that. And so that's why you see the features that come into Star Trek Online tend to trickle in a lot slower, because the majority of those team members are really part of Neverwinter or have moved into or just doing something else in core. And so we have to kind of borrow them if they are available. And if we want to do it ourselves, that means with our resources, what is it that we want to invest in for this next update? That's always just a challenging endeavor. Do we There's a lot of things we want to add, there's a lot of things we want to improve to the game, and there's a lot of things everybody has that's their favorite. For you guys, obviously, Foundry is very important, and rightfully so. And for other people, it might be PvP, and for other users, it might be a new player experience or more story content. So when we face a new update, it's like, well, what do we want to spend our resources in, and what can we get help from other departments? And then that's when productions and executive producers generally make those decisions. And once those decisions are made, it's up to the leads, like myself and the engineering lead and the art lead, to execute those decisions. So who's in charge of Foundry? Executive producers, because it's up to them to decide what goes in. What we can do as leads say, these are the features we'd like to do. These are how long it will take. What do you approve? And as far as who can do them, it's largely the Foundry experts over in Neverwinter, or our engineers who are quite capable but may not be as familiar with the Foundry innards. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
It's always a business. It's always a business strategy when it comes right down to it. It's like, what is going to be the best business strategy for this next 3 months, next 6 months, next year? And those things are planned very tightly for the next 3 months and very loosely for the next year. And they keep coming into focus. And we're getting better at scheduling more tightly further out. So we have a much better plan. Usually we plan far out. By the time we get 3 months closer to it, we've already changed directions, but we're actually getting much better. We're getting stuff done. We have stuff done now already for season 9, and season 8.5 is not, and season 8.5 is not even out. So
I bet that makes you all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief.
It is. It makes well, because we've done in the past, we've got stuff that is going out where it's still being worked on the night before, and then people at midnight are just scrambling to finish it, and then it just goes out. So, as we've gotten more and more resources from Perfect World, because Star Trek's become more and more successful, we've been able to give things more time and start getting ahead of things. First, we were doing a lot of catch up, and now we're actually getting ahead of things. So it's a really good place to be in right now.
Yeah, sounds it.
What is the plan for the Foundry? You said there's not much happening. What is happening?
Well, what we did do, and I sent a few months back, is take a look at some of the things that we could do. And some of the features that we recently released, for instance, was the tagging and categorization that went out for the combat mission or story mission that I noticed a lot of Foundry authors and Foundry players really wanted. So I kind of made a big voice about, I think that's probably something that we can do pretty simply. I hope you guys can end. And then I think that will get a pretty good bang for the buck. I know that they are working on a couple other features that should be out soon. By soon, I mean but within a few weeks to a few months tops. There is, I think they're working on potentially follow an author tech. So you can subscribe to an author. So you can sort by author, and you can get a notification when an author has released a new piece of content. I don't know the details of the feature, but it's called follow author tech. I know that that's currently being worked on.
Nice.
And I also know that campaign tech is currently being worked on. So an author can make a campaign. I know Neverwinter has a similar feature to that. But it basically is, you can make, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, or whatever, how many parts of your mission. So when you finish one, you can go. Yeah, and it's just like this campaign. I want to follow Cerebus Films' arc, whatever, and and it will be so you can make a story arc. Those are two features that I've been told are currently a work in progress. And so hopefully you should see them within a reasonable amount of time. There are other things that may happen that have been on the list of like, hey, these are things that we really want to get, but are currently not scheduled. Brandon and I, if you know Brand Flakes, were just talking recently about how can we get more art assets into the game, because I think that'd be a pretty straightforward thing. And unfortunately it's not as straightforward as it sounds, but that an artist or somebody has to go in, and I'm not exactly sure what they need to do, but they just need to tag them, and they need to set them up on a grid, and they need to do something to them and then publish them. And then usually it's not just one object, it's usually a suite of objects. So it takes a little bit of time, but Brandon and I were kind of thinking about, is there any way that we could get some skunk work team and just like come in on a Saturday and just get some more assets into the game? So just someone doing it on their own time kind of thing. Because, the people who would do that are generally going to be like character artists or environmental artists. And, well, they're packed. Like, for instance, we're talking about how can we want to get an Intrepid ship interior into the game. right? That's going to be huge because we're doing more Delta Quadrant stuff. But that actually takes 60 man days to do that. That's 12 weeks for one artist to do. And so that's a lot of work. And that means that is 12 weeks that someone isn't doing tagging Foundry assets, right? So their time is at a premium. And so that's why we're seeing whether or not we can find ways to squeeze more of that in. The biggest feature that I want to see, but I couldn't tell you when it's going to happen, is I want to get that 3D nudger that Neverwinter has. So you can edit your map in 3D. I don't necessarily see that. That was a pretty monumental task from the way I understand it to get that into the game. I eventually see it happening, but it's certainly not scheduled. Smaller features like maybe fixing snap to grid features, or here's one that I really want to get in. I think shouldn't be too hard. It'd be getting MacGuffins. Just call them MacGuffins. So like if an author wants to say like have an object that is go and collect this hat and deliver it to Picard or something like that. So that way you would be a library of these bind-on pickup items that you would clip from a mission and then would be consumed when you turn it in to the mission giver for your prize. A key, gold key, red key, blue key, green key. But a library of those kind of objects.
It's actually something like that exact thing is something we've been talking about for a long while. Actually, since Neverwinter came out, and we noticed that they had the ability to, you could pick up the item, and then you could run a logic test to see if you have that item.
Yeah.
Or if the player is holding that item, then present this piece of dialogue, etc., etc. And at least to me and a few others, it's that sort of thing would be incredible for STO to have, because it would then allow us to create truly branching missions and things like that, simply because we could, rather than having to rely on the player to select the right immersion breaking option for dialogue every time they go onto a map, we could just test, okay, did they pick up this? Oh, then we give them this dialogue and this happens on this map.
Yeah. So I think it's something to be very useful. It's when it comes down to it, it's probably 3 to 5 days, so a week of someone between art and engineering, maybe probably a little bit of work from design. So it's something that is on the list of I'm telling you things that are kind of like on the short list of things that we've got our eyes on, of things we want to do. There's like another one on the short list, which might actually be fairly trivial to do, is what we call placing job nodes. So that way you can tell an NPC to walk over and start clicking on a console and interact with the console, right? And start typing on the console. It's something we use, like when you see a character, you'll be talking with someone, he'll walk over and start typing on the keyboard or sit down in a chair, the job nodes. I think that might be something that would be fairly easy to expose. I could see that happening because it's a pretty easy task from what I've been told. I'm not sure where that is on the schedule.
You may not recognize me, but I hold the record for the longest consecutive win streak in dueling history. Don't feel bad, it happens all the time. When I'm eating at my favorite restaurant or charging goods and services all over the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Let's face it, there are some malevolent species out there and they just don't trust me. But they do trust this, the Andorian Express card, known throughout the quadrant as a symbol of prestige. It's not just a charge card, it's a status symbol that says I'm somebody, and it's accepted on planets galaxy-wide. You may not be from my homeworld, but nothing says you've arrived like Andorian Express. Even when my opponents fail to realize what they're in for, it's easy to remind them. I'm Shrek, and I've taken the lives of 16 men, a career that screams excellence, just like my card, Andorian Express. Don't Ushan without it.
Of course, this had to happen now, during our 25th episode.
Come on, guys, let me out of here. This is ridiculous. I'm fine. Everyone gets a little angry sometimes.
Sorry, KF, can't do it. You lost it. But we're gonna get you help, really.
Don't worry, it's just temporary. You'll be out in no time.
Look, I can't stay in here. I was just being a butthurt dumbass. I'm sorry. I say mean things when I'm angry.
You threatened to kill us.
Oh, you have to know I didn't mean it. Besides, I'm fine now, really.
Go ahead. Say something.
Really, I'm as calm as either of you.
So, did you get a chance to play that new exploit mission? I got a mountain of dilithium.
I'll kill you! I'll kill you, traitorous swine! If I ever get out of here, you're dead. Do you hear me? Dead.
Hey, did you catch that Tsukatse match last night?
Are you kidding? I had Latinum down on Jiraka to take Redo in the 3rd round.
Boy, have I got a treat for you this week. Hot off the press and loaded with phantom-like villains, secret facilities, unknown planets, and strange spatial phenomena, the Phoenix of Bavar 1 and 2 will keep you guessing to the very end. From the shadow of Bajor emerges a threat like none other you have ever faced. Wait a second. Hey, Cat! Yeah, you in the sound booth. Go cover your ears. What? Yeah, I mean now. Yes, folks. Today I'm going to be looking at a brand spanking new mission series by our very own Captain P.F. Dennis. Before I get any further into this review, it's important to note that Cap wrote these 2 episodes under a different account. If you do a search, you'll see them listed just under P.F. Dennis, without the Cap part of his name. Let me start by saying what a huge DS9 fan I am. I mean, when I finished watching Deep Space Nine for the first time, I literally cried. To me, Nerys and Odo were real people. The whole of the Star Trek cast felt like a family, one that I had suddenly and violently been torn from. As I played the Phoenix of Bavar 1 and 2, I felt a familiar sensation sweep over me. The opening notes of the Star Trek theme song filled my mind, and from the tips of my toes came that long-lost shiver of excitement. This mission brings a whole new level of meaning to the word interaction. Trust me, this is not one of those storylines where you just sit there and hit the F key until your eyes glaze over and rot out of your head. Whether you're negotiating with a wily Vorta, tiptoeing over a flaming abyss, or sharing the honor of battle with a Klingon warrior, this mission series will keep you wholly engaged in every second of adventure. With his cleverly created cast of characters, the Captain sheds light on names and faces from DS9's shadows. Forgotten plot threads from the TV show are skillfully woven into an absolute masterpiece. From Birno the pandering Vorta to Captain Jorah, a loving father with a deep sense of duty, the beliefs, values, and viewpoints of each canon race are portrayed with precision accuracy and great respect. The character's depth is not limited by lore, but rather the author uses his craft to give them a sense of genuine relatability. Cap's meticulousness is not merely limited to his characters, however. His precision spills over into every facet of this mystically infused epic. And don't think that this story is without action. There are massive battles to be found here. The odds of ancient Thermopylae are repeated here among the stars as you dash through heart-stopping chases and venture beyond blood-stained altars. Now, for a word or two about the backdrop of this tale. From a lush planet to the bowels of Hades, every nuance is painted with bold and bright strokes. Effects are used with liberality, yet not recklessly, creating an otherworldly field reminiscent of the climax of DS9 in What You Leave Behind. Without giving too much away, Cap has done some of the most painstaking trigger work that I have ever seen in a mission, bar none. In the heart of this mission is a labyrinth which will require your footsteps to be circumspect and your attitude to be one of utter patience. You can't rush headlong into this challenge, but you must pause to stop and consider each move carefully. The costumes that were used throughout were appropriate and well done. I did notice one slight inconsistency in the appearance of a character, and to his credit, the author literally had it fixed within hours. Thoughtfully posing some of the same questions as the Voyager episode Sacred Ground, P.F. Dennis explores the seeming paradox created by the intersection of faith and science. My only suggestion on the topic of immersion was when I commented to him that I would like to see more response options that were oriented towards a player with a strong faith, such as myself. Most of the dialogue choices he gave took the traditional view of scientifically sterile skepticism displayed by nearly every Trek captain from Kirk to Janeway. The Cap took my suggestion to heart and recently informed me that he plans to incorporate some faith-based dialogue as soon as time allows him to do so. Even with limited paths to choose from, this story was so utterly compelling that I never would have considered not finishing it. Primary gender rigidity was never an issue during this mission, even though the traditional masculine military terms are used throughout. As far as a rating on sexual content is concerned, I think it's safe to say that if this were a movie, the MPAA would give it a wholesome PG rating without any reserves. So in closing, this is Wordcraft at its finest. If you are looking for a mission series that contains rollicking adventure, heart, brains, and deep Trek roots, then look no further. Matter of fact, why am I standing here talking? I'll shut up now and you can get out of here and go play it.
What? Kirkfat's out?
That's right.
Oh man, he must be thrilled. He was going stir-crazy in there.
Kirkfat? No, he's so reserved. He just takes these things in stride. He's probably just sitting at home reading the forums.
In the Federation justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the Starfleet officers who investigate violations, and the silicon-based life forms who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories.
For the Federation and a Starfleet officer, there is no higher mandate than to obey and enforce General Order Number 1. In this time of war, when law threatens to fall silent, there exists a conspiracy, a cancer of corruption, spreading to the very heart and to the highest levels of the Federation. In the balance are the very souls of an entire race and the Alpha Quadrant itself. Can one individual make the difference? Can one captain, one ship, and one crew save the future? Do you have it in you to try? Burn away the deceit, the evil, and a people's sorrow.
Published in Primetime is now back, listing all the latest missions submitted to the Starbase UGC website as compiled by Rogue Enterprise. Here are the latest Federation missions. The Unexpected Return Part 3 by Logitech 007. This mission is 16+. After the loss of Starbase 375 to the Zenkethi forces, Starfleet and Klingon forces are on the run. Both the Federation and the Klingon Empire will be hard-pressed to get Starbase 375 back and to neutralize this new threat. Tempest, On the Edge, by Radiuron, at level 46+. Tempest, the experimental weaponry facility, has stopped sending transmissions. It's up to you to find out what happened. This mission will take you through some enjoyable storyline and features challenging space and ground combat. Icarus Simulation, Colony Rescue, by Salem Pardis, level 41+. Recently, the Icarus Directive was put into effect, and a new fleet is forming to accomplish the mission. You have been selected for evaluation. Your combat skills in space and on the ground will be tested, along with your character. The Good, the Bad, and L by Helix Fungus, level 31+. Let me introduce L. L is a continuum character a la Q. Same continuum, different flavor. You will be his pawns whether you want to or not. You are thrown into 3 different time zones to recover him a single artifact, the Tear of Jonat, one of the Bajoran jewels fallen from the wormhole. This artifact is a religious icon revered by the Bajoran people. The Phoenix of Bavar, Parts 1 and 2 by P.F. Dennis, level 31+. You are ordered to intercept a lone Klingon shuttle with a single occupant. This warrior may hold the key to a dangerous new alliance in the Alpha Quadrant. It will be a test of courage and faith to solve this mystery. Shore Leave Under Siege by Johnny Snowball, any level. On vacation on Betazed, you are enlisted to bring a potential ally into the Klingon war effort. A new alien race, a girl with remarkable skills, a city under siege. Faced with a choice that could win or lose the war, can you do the right thing? The Devil's Playground by Confed in Blue, level 41+. You are ordered to the Noro system to investigate why contact was lost with a research team. Dreaded Undead by Border J 1998, any level. When you're sent on a mission to find a lost ship, what you find is even more gruesome than you have ever imagined. You find a pathogen with the capability to kill and revive its victim. You have to work diligently to stop the spreading of this horrible virus to save the entirety of Starfleet. The Krios Conspiracy, Part 1, by Commander Mike, level 16+. It all starts with investigating the destruction of a Klingon vessel nearby Krios. Kabor, son of Moktor, asks you for help after the High Council refused his request for support. What initially sounds like a routine job soon leads into the beginning of a conspiracy against the Klingon Empire. The Rise of the Red Eclipse, by Priorin, level 35+. When an anti-Federation terrorist group violently interrupts peace talks between Starfleet and several high-profile dignitaries, it falls upon you to rescue them and stop an all-out war against the Federation. However, things are not always what they seem, and some answers lead only to further questions. And the newest Klingon mission, Honor of the Empire, by Sir Boulevard, level 50+. Following the incident with the Shiasi and the Azure Nebula, the Klingon High Council convenes to discuss the ongoing threat, only to find it knocking on their door. Win or lose, the Empire will be changed forever. Those are all the latest submitted missions. Please submit missions to our thread on the STO forums for inclusion on the Starbase UGC website so that we may include them here on Primetime UGC. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Support the Foundry by creating and playing Foundry missions. Let's try to change Cryptic's mind about our poor standing on their priority list and make Foundry an indispensable part of Star Trek Online.